people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
In the draw in my back garden, very close fight. Everyone thought they won the fight, right? She wanted a rematch. Now, Terry Harper, Steffi Bull had a mandatory. They wanted to unify. They also knew that it was a tough fight, right? Naturally, and decided to go another way. I then got Natasha Jonas, the Katie Taylor fight instead. Not a bad backup. She did great in that fight. That was a close fight. Katie won the fight. And then Natasha's gone and done brilliantly well, right? Terry Harper, weirdly, they're both weirdly won world titles at 154. Yeah. But now we're in the situation where you could make an undisputed fight between one girl that sells out Sheffield Arena, one girl that sells out the Echo Arena, formerly Echo Arena, and both could become undisputed, both could make a fortune. But haven't we got to be sensible, right? And go, hang on. No. Steffi, like Natasha, you don't like Eddie. Joe, you don't like Steffi. Do you really care? Like, at the end of the day, we'll do it on Sky. We'll do it on DAZN. I could not care less where we do this fight. I've got one person on my mind, Terry Harper. I want to make her as much money as possible, and I believe she can beat Natasha Jonas to become undisputed. Joe Gallagher, as manager, should be saying, I don't care where this fight takes place, I want Natasha to make as much money as possible and become undisputed.
So you've not got no problem with Terry going over there?
No problem at all. We haven't even heard back from him. I mean, they could come back, make us a counter offer.
That's right. It is understood that Matchroom has since made Natasha Jonas an improved offer for a Terry Harper rematch, somewhere in the neighborhood of £500,000. Natasha Jonas herself, however, upon hearing about these reports, stated, I can confirm it's nowhere near that.
Could you confirm or deny, and let us know, was there a significant increase from the first offer?
Wasn't a significant increase at all from the first offer. It's less than 500, a fair bit amount less.
But if Natasha don't want to fight Terry Harper for a second time, if they can't do the fight, what are her options?
She said she's receptive to a Clarissa Shields fight. The only fight I can imagine exceeds the Harper fight's value.
But she don't win that fight.
She also said she's receptive to moving down in weight and taking on Jessica McCaskill. But Jessica McCaskill's handler, Rick Ramos, has since stated they are not receptive to that fight.
So you've got a no-win scenario with Clarissa Shields in a fight that Rick Ramos isn't receptive to in Jessica McCaskill.
Whilst Eddie Hearn is stating quite plainly that they're willing to send Terry Harper over to Sky and Boxer, where Natasha Jonas would be the house fighter, where she'd have the advantage. He's saying they're willing to send Terry over there for that second fight, so long as that second fight happens, so long as that second fight takes place, and there is a demand for it.
My honest opinion, a Terry Harper rematch is the best option for Natasha, and possibly,
irrespective of hard feelings, she stands a somewhat better chance of victory opposite the ring Terry Harper than she does opposite the ring Clarissa Shields. I told you, Clarissa Shields is too much for Natasha Jonas.
Jessica McCaskill would be a good option if Rick Ramos were receptive to it, but he's not.
The best option is Terry.
You turn that into a two-fight deal.
The first fight was scored a draw, so you turn this into a trilogy. You do one fight on Sky and Boxer, you do the other on Matchroom and DAZN.
Two-way rematch clause for both champions. Well, admit Eddie Hearn made a very valid point. They've got to be sensible. They've got to be reasonable. Irrespective of hard feelings, it's a major fight, an important one, and a lucrative one for both combatants. The tables may have turned to Natasha Jonas's advantage, but isn't that all the more reason to do the second fight, to do the rematch, now that she's not just some opponent for Terry, she in many ways is the A-side fighter in possession of most of the alphabet titles. If Terry crosses over to Boxer and Sky, Natasha will have the advantage. She'll have the edge.
So if the fight is close, and competitive, the same way it was the last time, the judges might swing it in Natasha's favor.
I'd rather see Jonas versus Harper 2 than see Natasha Jonas share the ring with Clarissa Shields. Just being honest.
Clarissa Shields herself, who stated in so many words that there are no obstacles impeding a fight between them. There's nothing in the way. If she wants to fight, it can happen.
Clarissa's way too big for Natasha Jonas, among other things.
Clarissa Shields was able to withstand the storm against the very statuesque and physically imposing Savannah Marshall. So what chance does Natasha Jonas, who's campaigned as low as 130 pounds, what chance does she stand of holding Clarissa Shields back? Clarissa's not a characteristically big puncher, per se, but opposite the ring, a fighter who used to campaign at 130.
She'll be too big, too strong, too fast, too good.
Too much for Natasha Jonas. She don't win that fight.
Not because she's not a great fighter. She's a great fighter, but there's simply too much working against her in that one.
In any event, we'll see what Natasha Jonas decides to do moving forward, and however that decision pans out.
The world that I think that could beat Tank. That would be Devin, that would be Shakur, and Tank Davis himself.
Yeah,
right.
You got the last one right. That's the only person that can beat me, Gervonta Davis. That's the only person. Them niggas cannot touch me at all. They all been in the ring with me. They all been in the ring with me. They all been in the ring, and I cracked both of them. I feel
you, but check this right, okay. Tank. But okay, so you telling me you cracked both of them, right? But I was also told that Devin got the best of you in the last sparring session.
He didn't get no best of me. He did not get no best of me.
He jumped right off the plane and sparred Devin. Right off the plane.
No best of me. He didn't get no best of me.
Here we go again with the sparring stories.
There was a time when what happened in sparring stayed in sparring and remained sworn to secrecy, whereas these days, these guys, they pride themselves on these sparring sessions as if they're legitimate victories, legitimate wins under the hot light. Shakur Stevenson has since caught wind of Gervonta Davis's comments in reference to what were supposed to be sparring sessions and stated he waits until he gets 2 fights lined up to start talking crazy. If he believes that lie, he just told him, fight me then. And be real about sparring. If you're going to come up here and tell them how you learned so much sparring me, you wanted to train with me and everything.
He tagged Gervonta Davis to the tweet, so I'm sure that a Twitter war will ensue instead of a real one, because that's commonplace with Gervonta.
You're more likely to see him argue with these fighters. You're more likely to see him argue with Devin Haney and argue with Shakur Stevenson on social media than you are to see him share the ring with these fighters that Floyd Mayweather.
Do you remember a few months ago when Floyd, in so many words, told them to leave his guy alone, just let him do his thing?
The story now is that neither Floyd Mayweather or Leonard Ellerbe are still in the Gervonta Davis business. Better still, he wanted those guys to leave Gervonta Davis alone.
We're 27, 28 years old. What are we still hearing about sparring stories for?
Sparring stories. You want to hear a sparring story? Here's a sparring story. Some time ago, Dimitri Bivol and Zerto Ramirez shared the ring in a sparring session over there on the West Coast. And the story is that Zerto Ramirez got the best of Dimitri in that sparring session. But more recently, they shared the ring under the hot lights, and we saw who dominated who.
What are we still hearing about sparring stories for?
A sparring story, an old one in association with Dillian White and Tyson Fury, and how Dillian White supposedly dropped Tyson Fury. I think the story entails him dropping Tyson Fury more than once. But when they fought earlier this year, you saw who dominated who.
What are we still hearing about sparring stories for?
How long ago was these sparring sessions anyway?
He didn't get no best of me.
Let me okay. Man, you can go on the internet.
And you know I sparred him twice. Right.
And Bill
took him out the ring.
And Bill admitted that. Bill and Dan both said that.
Almost knocked him out in Floyd gym. Did they tell you that? Did they tell you I almost knocked him out in the gym? Did they tell you that?
I don't know, but I ain't hear that.
Oh, okay.
Do you know how long Gervonta Davis and his handlers and his supporters have been carrying on about that sparring session with Devin Haney? How many years ago was that?
Not that a sparring session counts as an official win anyway, but do you know how long those stories have been around and how long Gervonta Davis has been riding that scooter?
I am not convinced that Gervonta Davis here today beats either fighter.
135, 140. I'm not convinced he beats either one. I'm not convinced he beats Devin, and I'm really not convinced he beats Shakur. I will admit,
I think he stands a somewhat better chance against Devin, relatively speaking. Somewhat better than he stands against Shakur, as Devin's punch resistance, it's not the best.
Not the greatest. We've seen him hurt before, but we've also seen him power through it. And lest we forget, we saw a one-legged Yuriorkis Gamboa with a torn Achilles tendon make it to the 12th round with Gervonta Davis.
So Devin Haney can't do better?
Over the hill injured Yuriorkis Gamboa can see the 12th round. It basically took Gervonta all of 12 rounds to finally get this guy out of there, but neither Devin and Shakur.
Oh, they don't last that long, even though they're younger, fresher.
Oh yeah, Gervonta Davis unofficially beats everybody. Everybody.
My honest opinion, maybe Gervonta did do well in sparring against Devin or Shakur, whenever that happened, whenever that took place. Maybe he did, but overall, a sparring session...
That has no influence over what I think would happen in an actual fight under the hot lights. A fight that I don't actually ever expect to see, but...
Shakur Stevenson hit the nail on the head. Gervonta Davis waits good up until he's got a Hector Garcia fight lined up, then a Ryan Garcia fight lined up, to start talking about him and Shakur.
If he was ever opposite the ring, Devin or Shakur, I'd go with Devin and Shakur to beat him.
Because styles make fights, and because a fighter like Gervonta Davis, a boxer-puncher with an affinity for counter-punching, you know, he's not a volume guy. He's not a pressure fighter.
He's a boxer-puncher and a decent counter-puncher.
Devin Haney's a decent counter-puncher. Shakur Stevenson's a decent counter-puncher. Those two guys, what they are pure boxers. And it just so happens that the according to Hoyle pure boxer consistently has an advantage over the boxer puncher, particularly the counter puncher, because the counter puncher's waiting for the man opposite the ring to make mistakes. And these are the two kind of fighters.
They don't make stupid mistakes like Leo Santa Cruz. They don't make stupid mistakes like Rolly Romero.
They're both younger than Gervonta, both taller, both longer.
So was Mario Barrios.
Yeah, Mario Barrios don't fight nothing like Shakur Stevenson. Don't fight nothing like Devin Haney.
Stupid.
Main reason the pure boxer has a stylistic advantage over a characteristic boxer puncher, particularly a counter puncher, is the counter puncher is waiting for the man opposite the ring to make a mistake. But given Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson's collective height and reach and their own brand of speed, their own brand of counter punching, they'd likely put Gervonta Davis on the back foot with their lead hand, their jab hand.
They'd back him off, and because they're taller and longer fighters than Gervonta, he'd struggle to get within striking distance.
He's fast. He is fast. He's got some speed, but so do they.
And what they've got that no other fighter Gervonta Davis has fought so far, what they've got is they've got good feet.
These are characteristically economic fighters that are defensively responsible, only throwing one or two shots at a time.
So the window of opportunity for Gervonta to land a counter shot is a very small window, much smaller than being opposite the ring Rolly Romero.
Gervonta not being a prolific puncher, it's not likely he wins the rounds on activity, on volume, because he's not a volume puncher.
What happens, I tell you what happens. They end up putting Gervonta Davis on his back foot.
Gervonta struggles to manage the distance, struggles to get around the jab.
And in those few moments where he does manage to get around it, as he comes forward, they take a half step back, they shoot a counter shot.
And he ends up right back where he started because he's the shorter, stumpier fighter that needs to get close to either guy before he can do anything.
I think Devin stands a good enough chance of decision in this guy, and when it comes to Shakur, I'm fairly confident he decisions.
Oh, he schools Gervonta.
I'm not sure that he will actually ever get that chance in real time. Shakur Stevenson himself is eyeing a WBC title eliminator with William Zepeda instead.
Fairly confident that doesn't happen either.
Not because I think William Zepeda is afraid of Shakur Stevenson, but because Oscar De La Hoya doesn't have the bodies to spare.
Last week, William Zepeda told Shakur Stevenson he ain't for the grab-assin', just send him an offer. And Shakur Stevenson is ready to call William Zepeda's bluff. The unbeaten former two-division titleist continues to explore a fight that will secure a place as the leading contender for the WBC lightweight title. The search began with WBC's order for Stevenson to face Mexico's own Isaac Cruz in a final eliminator, with the winner...
Isaac Cruz is not going over the top rank in ESPN.
...to be named the sanctioning body's mandatory challenger for undisputed champion Devin Haney.
BoxingScene.com has learned that Cruz is more inclined to explore the IBF route,
with the number 2 ranked contender moving out of the way.
How many times did I tell you? Isaac Cruz is not fighting Shakur Stevenson.
Even though Isaac Cruz's claim to fame as it were, isn't a fight that he won, it's a fight that he lost.
Fight by fight, he doesn't make the same money that Shakur Stevenson makes.
Which would, in effect, make Shakur Stevenson the A-side fighter in negotiations. If anybody has to submit and acquiesce from crossing over to one side to the other, it would be Isaac.
But Isaac Cruz and his father have since blown off that idea, so Shakur Stevenson moved on to William Zepeda.
William told him he ain't for the grab ass, and if you want to dance, send an offer, to which Shakur Stevenson responded, yo, William Zepeda. The offer was sent today. Stevenson tweeted out tagging Zepeda on the post after being called out by the red-hot contender. Stevenson and Zepeda are ranked 3rd and 4th, respectively, by the WBC. Number 1 ranked Vasyl Lomachenko is reportedly in talks to challenge Haney for the undisputed lightweight championship in a fight targeted for next spring.
So, Isaac Cruz ain't going to take the Shakur Stevenson fight. He's going the IBF route. I don't expect that Golden Boy Promotions will send William Zepeda over to Top Rank for that Stevenson fight, so who's next?
Well, right behind William Zepeda is former unified champion George Kambosos, who is a viable option, but he still hasn't rebounded off those 2 losses to Devin Haney.
Did he take that fight?
Right behind George Kambosos is Japan's own Shuichiro Yoshino. Unbeaten up-and-comer that sports a professional record of 16 wins, no losses, no draws, with 12 knockouts.
I feel like in the WBC's current rank standings, based on what's going on, Shuichiro may be the most viable option for Shakur Stevenson because George is coming off a loss. Ranked right behind Shuichiro is Jermaine Ortiz, who is also coming right off a loss.
George Kambosos and Jermaine Ortiz, those are good warm-up fights and good keep-busy fights for Shakur Stevenson. That's what they are. But because both fighters are coming right off of losses, would their handlers put them...
They're going to put him right back in there with another top-level fighter in Shakur Stevenson. They're not going to get those guys rebound fights.
That seems a bit of a stretch. I don't know. Maybe we get Jermaine Ortiz versus George Kambosos in a redemption fight so that the winner can face Shakur Stevenson sometime afterwards. Right now, Shakur is just 1 fight away from fighting for the undisputed lightweight titles. Irrespective of who wins the proposed Haney versus Lomachenko fight, irrespective of who wins that, Shakur is basically just 1 fight away from getting the winner in the ring.
That's it.
As far as William Zepeda, William is coming off a 12-round unanimous decision win over former IBF junior lightweight titleist Joseph Diaz. The unbeaten contender from San Mateo Anteco threw 100 more punches in every round, throwing 1,536 total punches, a CompuBox record for the lightweight division in their October 29th DAZN headliner from Pechanga Arena in San Diego, California. And it's a pity, it's a shame that the bureaucratic red tape and the politics of boxing may stifle a world title opportunity for William Zepeda, but Golden Boy Promotions just ain't got the bodies to spare.
One of their former unbeaten guys, one of the guys they're invested in, Zerto Ramirez, who was an unbeaten fighter going into that Bivol fight. He just lost for the first time in his career. You think they want that to happen to William?
Do you think they want to run those risks? I should say.
There's a proliferation of situations like this when it comes to different fighters at different weights, particular to this weight. When it comes to William Zepeda, I don't know when, if ever, this guy's going to get to fight for an alphabet title, because all the alphabet titles right now, they're at Top Rank.
He wants them. He's got to go over there.